I managed to get the HKS blow-off valve installed on my 2.0 T, and I wanted to make this video to kind of go over some general installation steps on what I had to go through. Just to start off, I'll show you that this is the box that it came in, and this is the authentic one. It's not the one off of eBay, because the one off eBay for about $30 or $40 are knockoffs made in China. And you can clearly see here that this one is made in Japan. This is the actual authentic one. And so to kind of get a close-up of the valve itself, you can see that there's a type of hologram. I don't know if it's going to come up here in the camera or not, but there's a type of hologram logo to, you know, like a certificate of authentication, if you will, or authenticity. There you go. So basically, when you buy the HKS blow-off valve, it's a generic valve, and you have to get your own flange to match the application. So in this case, it's for the Hyundai Genesis. The flange, you can get them for around, I think, $60, shipping included, off of eBay, and that's where I got mine, so it's not a problem. Just make sure that you look for the one for the HKS mounting, because I believe the circle here has to match in order to fit properly. So I'm going to go over just in a brief overview how the installation went with me and how I routed it to make it work. So the first step, and I think the most difficult step, step one, is that you need to mount the flange onto the blow-off valve before you mount it onto the motor itself. Now, the problem that I had, and why I say that this is the hardest step, is because there's a C-clamp that has to seat in between the lip on the outer diameter and the inside. It's kind of hard to describe it really, but there's a C-clip literally in the shape of a C like this that you would have to use a special tool to squeeze them together so that the circumference is shorter, get it into the location, and then let go so that it would grow and it will rather expand and create a good seal so that it does not come off. This by far was the hardest step for me. I'm not strong enough and I didn't have good enough tools to do it, so I took it to my mechanic and I had them put it on for me. It took them no more than 5 minutes to get it on because they have their tricks and great tools. So, step one, mount the blow-off valve onto the flange. Now, next step is disconnect the old blow-off valve. Just undo the 3 bolts. There's 2 right here and 1 below, a third one, and disconnect the vacuum hose that comes off of it. Actually, I'll show you the old one here. See if we can make a comparison. So you disconnect the vacuum hose that goes to the solenoid and completely just take it off, and you can see the difference. Just in the weight itself, you can tell that this one is not very strong compared to this big monster here. So, you know, you can just tell it's not, you know, it's apples and oranges basically. So, once you take the old one out, step 3, go ahead and come up to this section over here. Now, normally this hose right here with the one-way valve is going to be connected directly to your intake manifold. So what this point right here, connected here, disconnect it and insert a T-fitting of 3/8 on all 3 ports, because that's actually 12/32, and even though this hose is 11/32, at least that's how it's marked, you'll still find it a little bit of a challenge to get it connected, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, disconnect that hose. Step 4, insert the T-fitting, the 3/8 T-fitting all the way around. Now it doesn't matter in which direction you install it, because It just so happens that I installed it this way to try to make the hose as clean as possible, and I know this isn't the best looking solution, so perhaps someone can, who has done this, maybe can snap me a picture and show me how they routed theirs, but with the Texas heat and all, this is as good as I can do. Step 5, once you have these connected, or that one connected, go ahead and install 3/8 size hose here, and another 3/8 size hose here, and you connect the little piece back into the intake manifold and install the hose clamp. I use the stock hose clamp. Of course, you could use the aftermarket one. However, my problem is I ran out of hose clamps because in the pack there's 4 that come in the pack, so I ended up using all of mine, so I had to use the stock one just to finish the job. So once you tap into the intake manifold and you install those other 2 hoses, step 6 would be to have this, what they call a reducer. Now this was a part I got from Napa, and it's a long one, and I can't remember the name, but or the part number, but if you were to go and just look at all the accessories or vacuum line accessories that Napa has, you'll find it, guaranteed. Starts off as a very long piece, and what you do is you cut the piece of plastic to the size that you need. On one side you have it to 3/8, and on the other side you're going to use the 3/16, because that's as close to 4 millimeters as possible. This is actually 4.8 millimeters if you convert from 3/16. So once you cut the plastic and get it to the size that you need, go ahead and install the 3/8 on one end, and then get another piece of hose, which is the 3/16, and install it on that end, and you bring that over to the vacuum port right here for the HKS, and just use zip ties to tighten it. It actually makes a very, very good seal, and you won't have any problems. You can still pull it hard enough and disconnect it by hand. However, even with the testing that I did, I didn't have any problems. So step 7, once you have that connected, now you need to worry about the leftover hoses and the solenoid. And this is the interesting part that I learned. I learned that if you have the solenoid disconnected from the wire harness, you will get a check engine light eventually. A code saying that the bypass valve has too low or high of voltage. So you have to leave this electrically connected, even though there are no lines attached to it whatsoever. So whatever remainder of vacuum lines, go ahead and remove them. Just clean it up, get it out of the way. And as a matter of fact, this metal bracket that the solenoid sits on will have to be bent a little bit. Can't remember which way did I bend that. Actually, I ended up bending it upward, and I removed the solenoid and installed it upside down. That way it does not hit the power steering pulley, touch it in any way, and it can still be installed without having too much of this real estate sitting and bumping into the valve. So go ahead and leave the solenoid installed. In step 8, once you do that and you have the connectors, or rather the hoses removed, we need to cap off. Let's see if I can get it in the, let me get the light here a little bit better. Let's see. So you're going to cap off this boost port that comes off of the stock intercooler pipe. Just put one of those rubber caps, and these also come in a pack. I think a pack of 8 or so of these small vacuum caps. They're just like little rubber caps that you just slide onto the port and use a zip tie to tighten it, and it absolutely does not move. It's a very good seal. You'll just have to use your eye to see which one is the size, but You want to get it as close to 3/16 or 4 millimeters as possible. So you want to cap the intercooler pipe, and you want to cap this port right here, which comes off the vacuum feed line that goes all the way into the intake manifold from underneath. So you want to cap these two off, and once you have that completed, make sure you have all your bolts tightened. And one thing is that when you, what I would recommend is, put the 3 bolts in by hand, just hand tighten, and then you can actually grab a hold of this with 2 hands and turn it very slowly with a lot of effort, so you can make space to get to each one of these bolts in order to tighten them up. So you don't have to sit and fight with it in trying to get some kind of angled tool or some other apparatus to tighten it. This will actually move, so it's not a problem. And once you have everything tightened and installed, just kind of go over, make sure that all your clamps are tight, you don't have any leaks. Just kind of adjust and mess with the stock hoses a little bit just to make sure everything is okay, and go for a test drive. And that's all there is really to it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. GCP can get these HKS valves at a much cheaper price than you would be able to get through any other reseller. So definitely send him an email if you're interested. He also makes the intakes and working on some various other components. So hopefully you can get a good deal through him. Just send him an email, ron@genesiscoupeperformance.com, and just tell him that Cheers sent you. Alright, just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.